Alright guys, I'm over here at Avalanche Harley Davidson in Golden, Colorado. And usually this whole line is full of bikes. Look, there's a whole bunch of bikes that people are taking out for test drives. I've been working through all of them. And today, right now, we're going to take out this one. This is Street Glide Special, the Anniversary Edition. The Anniversary Edition is this awesome paint job. Look at the little emblem on the side. Pretty awesome. It looks like the have a cover, kind of covering up the engine size on this. It might say the engine size here. It's a 114. Pretty awesome. And it also says the price if you're interested in the price. This one is $30,899. Not too bad for a Harley Davidson. And this is a Street Glide. Remember the Street Glides. The difference between Street Glide and a Road Glide is the Street Glide is the fairing attached to the forks, where if you move the handlebars, it'll actually move the whole fairing. And on the Road Glide actually has the fairing attached to the frame, so it doesn't move. Personally, I think the Road Glides are a little bit more stable, especially on corners, just because you don't have the wind kind of bouncing against the fairing. Kind of, I don't know. It's just, I guess that's my perception. But they're both really good bikes. All right, so you turn it on right here. Pretty much your standard Harley Davidson. Turn it on here, and let's see if we can turn the radio down a little bit. All right, it's funny sometimes on these, the radio volume is on the right button, sometimes it's on the left button. And then make sure you're neutral. We are in neutral, and you hit start. And it's interesting, I was actually just on another Street Glide that was completely digital, and personally I actually prefer kind of like the analog gauges and then a little bit of digital, kind of a combination of both, the analog and the digital. But yeah, pretty awesome. Got a little bit of rumble to it. So we're going to take this one out for a ride. Got some floorboards that bring my knees up pretty far. Oh, another thing I wanted to check is to see if the look at that, the handlebars do not hit my knees. On the last one it was brutal. The handlebars were like hitting my knees to where I could only turn the handlebars about halfway. That's one thing you got to watch, especially if you're big on one of these bikes. This one actually fits me. It seems like a little bit better than some of them. Alright, so let's take off here. Yeah. Alright, not bad, not bad. This one's pretty nice actually. Pretty nice, pretty nice. Alright. Let's see here. Wow. Yeah, it handled that bump pretty good. This one's actually pretty smooth. Pretty smooth. Not bad at all. Pretty nice stance, even though it kind of feels like my feet are up almost a little too high in the floorboard. I feel like maybe I'm a little bit scrunched, but not too bad. Feel like maybe I'm a little bit more spread out than some of them. It's actually a really good stance on this one. I actually really like it. Of course, I'm 6'4", 242 pounds now. Wow, wow, that's actually a pretty good acceleration for a big bike like this with the 114. I'm actually surprised. It's interesting because, a lot of the bikes with the 114, some seem so much faster than other ones. Oh, it has a really good sound to it too. I really like the sound. I know this is one of the The really good selling bikes, one of the most popular bikes is the Street Glides. Street Glides and the Road Glides, I'd say. Seems like a lot of people have either a Road Glide or a Street Glide. Yeah, what I would actually do is, this actually has crash bars on it. I would put some highway pegs on the crash bars. Alright, so this is interesting. I was just on the Street Glide CVO, and the wind noise was absolutely deafening. On this one, there's like no wind noise. It's amazing. I just can't even believe it. Like no wind noise. I'm going 55. Can't hear the wind. And on the Street Glide CVO, it was so loud, I almost needed earplugs. I almost like was tempted to, if I had earplugs, I probably would have pulled over and put them in, because it was so loud. So, and it had some kind of a weird, kind of a spinning, like a vented dash or something up on the top, which is interesting. It's like, that's one of the big things that people don't realize, you know, unless you ride all the bikes and all the different versions of the bikes, is that the, you know, sometimes the wind can be loud, sometimes it can be really choppy. Like on the other one, I was getting really bad buffeting. I'm not getting, well, I haven't really got up to speed too much, but usually once you hit about 65, you can feel if it's going to get a lot of buffeting. And so far on this one, I haven't had any buffeting at all. It seems like it has a lot better of a stance than the Street Glide CVO. As far as wind deflection, it is deflecting almost all the wind up on my chest and my hands. Yeah, if you're riding in a hailstorm, like I did yesterday, I was riding the Nightster. I'm gonna have to, that'll be interesting editing that video, because I got caught in some really bad hail and some pouring rain. I had to pull over. I was like hiding under a tree. So that's going to be a fun video to put together. But yeah, in the Nightster, basically you're totally exposed. You don't have a fairing or anything, so it's like full-on hail. And on this one, it would protect your chest and your hands and everything. I don't know if it would protect your legs, like on if you run like an ultra limited or something like that, you'd probably have more leg protection. So one thing you have to watch on these bikes with the big fairings like this is they're kind of top heavy, and doing slow speed stability in bumper to bumper traffic is pretty miserable. It's like pretty unstable. It's almost like you'd want to stop and put your foot down or something. But, yeah, especially if you're not used to it, like, you know, going bike to bike, and a bike you're not used to as far as the balance and everything. I feel like I'm doing pretty good, but I've been riding quite a bit. So if you were like a newbie trying to do slow speed with a heavy fairing like this, you might be a challenge for you. But alright, let's see if we can bring it up to like 65. See what the buffeting's like. 65 right there. It's pretty choppy. Maybe a little bit of buffeting. Maybe just a little bit. Going 60. Yeah. So I mean, ideally the fairing should be a little bit taller from you. Normally the fairing should end right under your line of vision. So ideally it would be like even 4 or 5 inches taller to completely get rid of all of the buffeting. So like, for example, like my line of vision is like right here, so literally looking at, I don't know, like another 3 inches maybe 4. If you could bring it up a little bit, normally that'll bring the buffeting to 0. But kind of the cool thing I like about this is there's no wind noise, none at all. So you bring that fairing up and you'd have no wind noise and no buffeting. This would be a pretty nice bike. As a matter of fact, I think I was on a streak line one year with a taller fairing, and it was perfect for me. And you don't want it to where you're like looking through the fairing, because then if the fairing gets dirty, then you can't see. You want to just be barely looking over the fairing. As far as being smooth on the road, I don't know. This is pretty smooth. It's funny because this one seems smoother than the CVO. The CVO actually had the 121, but the 121 actually had like more engine vibration. If I pulled in the clutch, it seemed like there was a lot of engine vibration. It would just disappear if I pulled in the clutch and just kind of coasted. And like on this one, if you pull it in and kind of coast, then you can feel what's from the engine and what's from the suspension. It's got a really nice sound to it. Really like it. Feels pretty nimble. Not too bad. Yeah, I was kind of pretty hard on that. Streak Glide CVO, there's so many things that probably the biggest thing was the handlebars were hitting my legs. And I came up here and tried to turn around. I actually had to put my legs out to the side in order to actually try to turn around. But let's see how this one turns around here. Not too bad, pretty good. Usually when I'm turning like this, I kind of ride the clutch and the brake and the gas all at the same time. Seems like he can turn around better. You have a little bit more precise control on all your different controls. All right, let's see what this thing can do. Not too bad. Pretty fast for the 114. I think my Fat Boy is a little bit faster. I have a 2023 Fat Boy. Of course, it's a lighter bike. It's a lot lighter. Now I'm kind of going against the wind, getting a little bit more buffeting. Kind of bobbling my head around. I move my head. But it's funny, if I move my head way up, there's a lot of wind noise up here. But if I bring it down to where there's, you know, my normal stance, there's like no wind noise. Not at all. Just barely any. It's pretty weird. Going 50, 55. Pretty nice, pretty nice. As far as the seat's pretty comfortable on this one. I think I have a better stance on this than most. You know, being 6'4", even though my knees are a little bit higher than I prefer, it's not too bad. Actually, on my Fat Boy, I actually changed out the floorboards and I put pegs. And on most of these bikes, they have a conversion kit and it's just 2 bolts. It's super easy. So as far as the stereo, I've never really compared the stereo side by side because I always use earbuds in my helmet. So, but it sounded like it had a really good stereo when I was just, you know, when I first started up and the stereo was blaring. It sounded pretty good. Of course, I don't know how the stereo would really sound if you had a helmet on. You'd almost have to have no helmet to really hear the stereo really good. So, I think it's interesting that motorcycles even have stereos. I guess a lot of people do ride without a helmet. Or I suppose if you were like in a lot of really slow traffic, you can hear the stereo better than if you're on the highway. And the stereo really depends on the wind noise from the fairing. So if you have like really loud wind noise, boy, even if you didn't have a helmet, I would think it'd be hard to hear the stereo. So I've never actually cranked up the stereos on these motorcycles to see what the quality was. because I never use the stereo. I always use my earbuds, and I actually have noise canceling earbuds that'll cancel out all the road noise. And it's kind of interesting too, because I have, you know, the special, like the memory foam that fits in your ears for the earbuds, and it like completely eliminates all the wind noise. And like right now I'm not wearing any earbuds, so I can actually hear the difference between the different wind noises on all these motorcycles. This is pretty fast. I'd say it's one of the faster baggers. Pretty peppy. I'd say faster than 99% of the cars on the road, for sure. And I'd say it has a better exhaust note than probably 90% of all the motorcycles that I've heard. Definitely one of the best. Maybe the best. Without being like loud and obnoxious. These are awesome roads up here in the mountains of Colorado. You just don't want to fall off the side there. You have to really be careful. There's definitely a cliff there on the side of the road, but it is beautiful. So one of the things I like about my Fat Boy versus something like this, I mean, every bike has pros and cons, so you kind of have to take the bike with all the cons and then try to, you know, figure out your compromises when you're kind of upgrading your bike. But one of the things I like about my Fat Boy is that there's no fairing and the handlebars are down low, even lower than this, and they don't get in the way of my knees, which is interesting. But it almost seems like you're not even riding a motorcycle because you don't have any of this fairing in front. You can't even hardly even see the handlebars because they're even down lower. So it almost seems like you're riding a rocket on that Fat Boy versus something like this where you have something in front of you. It's definitely a different experience. This is kind of more behind a bunch of stuff, where the Fat Boy is like you have more of the open road in front of you. It seems like you have a better view of everything. And I don't know which is better. You know, for wind protection, for long distance, this is probably better. Keeps the bugs off you. Keeps all the hail and the rain off you. As far as a new rider, especially if you have, you know, you're trying to overcome the fear factor of riding for the first time, I would say having a fairing might be a little less scary, maybe, I'd say, because you're actually behind something versus being like out in the open. So when I first started, I rode my Dyna and I got a windshield in front of me, and it seemed like, you know, once you block the wind and you actually get behind something, it kind of cuts down on the fear factor versus just being out in the open. And then after you know, you get used to it, you kind of lose that fear, then it doesn't matter either way. So for me, you know, riding all these years, it doesn't matter if I have a fairing or not as far as the fear factor. But I do remember when I started, it kind of was a big deal because it kind of freaks you out a little bit when you first start riding. Going around the corners, handles really nice. I'm really starting to get used to this bike. And just almost by the time you get used to it, it's time to switch to another bike. So the only one that I'm really used to is my Fat Boy, because I have a Fat Boy and a Dyna that I ride. Pretty nice, pretty nice. Looks like we got a Harley Davidson truck here. In the way. So I'm not sure exactly what he's doing. Looks like maybe a brand new one. Yeah, it seems pretty easy to maneuver compared to some of them. I'd say the seat for me, well, with the floor, with my feet up from the floorboards, the seat's not really ideal. Just because my knees are higher than my waist. So, but it is a comfortable seat. Let's see, I think I'll park her right here. Pretty nice. Would I buy this bike? Yes, I would buy this bike. This is probably one of the ones that fits me the best, that I enjoy riding the most. It's pretty nice. All right, so there you have it. That is the 2023 Street Glide Special and the anniversary paint job. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming along, and I will see you next time.